Is Seattle really dying? We see headlines all the time of everything that's going wrong in Seattle, Seattle proper to be specific, all the homelessness and the drug use issues, the cleanliness or lack thereof in the city. In fact, just a few years ago, one of the local news stations, Como News, made a documentary called Seattle is Dying and dove deep into all the problems the city is currently facing.
Let me ask you something. What if Seattle is dying and we don't even know it? This story is about a seething, simmering anger that is now boiling over into outrage. It is about people who have felt compassion, yes, but who no longer feel safe, no longer feel like they are heard, no longer feel protected. It is about lost souls who wander our streets, untethered to home or family or reality, chasing a drug which in turn chases them. It is about the damage they inflict on themselves, to be sure, but also on the fabric of this place where we live. This story is about a beautiful jewel that has been violated and a crisis of faith amongst a generation of Seattleites falling out of love with their home.
Now, while there's certainly a lot of issues going on in Seattle, it's important to look at the big picture. A lot of my viewers here on my channel, a lot of you are living in and around the Seattle area, and a lot of you are living out of state, thinking about moving to this area, which is how you found my channel. So I want to talk about how this issue, this Seattle is dying issue, is really affecting Seattle and the surrounding suburbs, because it's easy to be scared off about this area when you read the headlines and you look at all the worst stuff that's put out about Seattle. So let's just start by talking about downtown Seattle, Seattle proper specifically, and what's really going on. Yes, Seattle has a major issue with homelessness, tent cities, trash on the streets and graffiti, a lot of stuff, property crime going on downtown that is deterring people from wanting to live there. Many a times have I been downtown in certain areas and I'll see somebody whipping out a needle or just drugs in general and sitting right there on the street and doing what they're gonna do. People defecating right on the street downtown is not uncommon to see. There is certainly a huge issue with drugs in downtown Seattle. Along with that has come higher crime rates, and you may hear that Seattle is a very dangerous place to live and you shouldn't live in Seattle because of all the crime that goes on. Now, I just want to take a big picture look at some of the statistics, not giving you my opinion on, different areas and whether I think it's a good spot to live or not. I just want to talk about the stats of what the crime is looking like in Seattle. So you can see this recent report that was generated on the highest crime cities in the United States. We can scroll down here. You can see Seattle falls all the way to number 51. When it comes to violent crime, they are ranked the 51st worst city in the US for violent crime. Not bad at all. When you're considering large cities, large downtown areas to be ranked number 51 for violent crime, maybe that's not what you would have expected by reading all of these headlines. We can look across the chart here and see that we are ranked quite a bit higher on property crime. Number 12 in the nation ranked here on property crime. Now again, I'm going to re-emphasize this part too, and I'm going to keep re-emphasizing it as we go through this video. This is for the city of Seattle. I know a lot of you that watch my channel are really looking into the Seattle metropolitan area as a whole. There's over 70 different cities, suburbs outside of Seattle that people are considering when they're moving over here. So these are issues that affect specifically the city of Seattle. And you're gonna see when you're walking down there and you visit Seattle for the first time, you're going downtown, some of this might shock you. It is absolutely true. You're gonna see tent cities in a lot of places, specifically by freeways and under overpasses, major intersections. There's a lot of that going on. Along with that, there's a lot of drug use. This is one of the biggest issues here in downtown Seattle is the drug use. You can see needles on the ground like I mentioned, and people just doing it right out in the open. Seattle has not done a very good job at policing this, and really the police say that their power has been stripped from them and they're not really being told to or allowed to enforce those laws. Criminals are being let back out on the street very consistently, and it just makes the issue worse and worse. However, not all of Seattle proper is bad. There's plenty of places that you can go, neighborhoods that you can go where you're not going to be dealing with this. This isn't going to be on your street or in your neighborhood. And you can, I know a number of people that live in Seattle proper that really enjoy it. So it all comes down to doing your research. If you're moving over here, figuring out what areas might fit better for your lifestyle. If you're in downtown or Belltown or some of those areas down there, they might be worse than some of the Seattle neighborhoods further to the north, something like that. There's pockets here and there. There's some neighborhoods I prefer more than others, and that can change from individual to individual. Like I said, there's a lot of people that still enjoy living in Seattle, but we can't ignore the fact that there is a serious issue with the homelessness and with crime, public drug use, and really the overall cleanliness of the city. Like I mentioned, it can be very dirty in a lot of places, and it is something that needs to be addressed better by the city. The last 11 years, Seattle has spent $1 billion on homelessness. Obviously, this really has not shown any improvement in the situation. It's only gotten worse, so it's tough to say where exactly those funds are all going, whose pockets they're going into, what salaries those are paying instead of going back into the community to solve the problem. But that's really what they've invested over the last decade. The new mayor, Bruce Harrell, he's planning to spend about $250 million towards more affordable housing. Now, the angle he's taking is that if we provide more affordable housing, it's going to really help solve this homelessness issue. And the King County Regional Homelessness Authority plans to put up about 23,000 temporary home units, right? Temporary structures to house those homelessness. Now, the point that I think needs to be discussed further here, and this is just my opinion that maybe not being discussed enough, is a lot of these people that are living on the streets are doing it by choice, right? It's not just because they don't have a place to go, they don't have the ability to get a job and fend for themselves and live in an apartment or something. Oftentimes it is a choice for them to live on the streets because of how much they get for free.
You wouldn't wish this life on your worst enemy.
No.
Right?
No. But it's remarkable that people are choosing this. Even though you hear the statistics from the city that, oh, people don't want to do this, that it's miserable, there's a compassion for people. The people you see, and I see in camps, many of them are choosing to stay this way because of all the drug habits they have.
And that's all driven by the drugs.
Yes. Almost
the drugs
everybody
drives everything we see here, right?
I would pretty much say that. Substance abuse, heroin, meth, even marijuana to some extent, is the driving factor why they stay out here.
So I think along with these housing plans, the city is going to have to do something both about the drug issue and the mental health issue to actually help these people. Otherwise, there's always going to be people that are choosing to live on the street and choosing to live this way. Now, outside of just the city of Seattle, let's talk about the Seattle metropolitan area as a whole, because this is where it gets a little bit concerning for me, is when people are talking about, yeah, we'd love to live in the Seattle area, and then they see this headline, this documentary by Como News put out, Seattle is dying, and that stops them in their tracks. They're scared of what that means they're getting into. What I will say is the Seattle metropolitan area as a whole is nothing like the city of Seattle. There's a lot of different neighborhoods and suburbs around here. They're going to feel like a completely different world than Seattle, and some that will be similar, right? So it depends what you're looking for, but there are a lot of options around here. A recent study by bestplaces.net looked at this crime statistic as well, but instead of the individual city, it looked at metropolitan areas as a whole for total crime. Had Seattle metropolitan area as a whole ranked number 35 on this list. Cities like Houston, Nashville, Orlando, Dallas, San Antonio, Phoenix were ranked to have more crime in their metro areas than the Seattle metro area. Statista did another similar study with the metro areas, calculating the total amount of crime per 100,000 people. The top 50 areas in the Seattle metro area did not even make the list, right? They're saying, according to their data that they've gathered, there's at least 50 different metro areas that have higher crime rates than the Seattle metro area. This is not what I'm saying, what I'm interpreting. This is all just the numbers and what the numbers are showing us, and we're seeing congruency in these multiple different reports showing us very similar things. In fact, I've had a lot of different clients come here from out of state, and they visited different areas for the first time, and they've gone to a Seattle And then after Seattle, they visited Bellevue. Now, Bellevue is our other kind of large downtown area that draws a lot of people in. It's just over Lake Washington, not far at all, about 10 miles away from Seattle over the lake. A lot of people are coming over here for jobs at places like Google and Microsoft and Amazon, all those companies that are in the Bellevue-ish area. A lot of people have told me when they go to Seattle and then they come to Bellevue, Bellevue feels like a completely different world, and they can't believe how close it actually is. When you go to Bellevue, you don't see the graffiti, you don't see tent cities, you don't see the homeless encampments, you don't see public drug use or needles on the ground, you don't see people defecating on the streets. It's non-existent in Bellevue. And a lot of these other surrounding suburbs, that's true as well. There are far, far more pleasant and clean places to live than maybe the things that would deter you in downtown Seattle. Again, not to say there's not opportunities for people to live in downtown Seattle. I know a number of people that love it, and the surrounding neighborhoods in Seattle proper. I think there's a spot that could be for everybody that wants to live a little bit more of an urban lifestyle and be closer to downtown, but you can go to a neighboring area that's very close and get a completely different feel. Now, the IRS actually tracks tax migration to kind of show us where money is coming in and out of certain areas so we can get an idea of growth for population in certain counties, where it's going, where it's coming from, if they're going positive in growth, negative in growth. So you can see Washington State here as a whole is growing. There's a lot of people that are moving here to Washington State. The most common areas are California, New York, Illinois, Alaska, and Oregon. Now, if we zoom into the Seattle metropolitan area, it's made up of 3 counties. You have King County in the middle, Snohomish County to the north, Pierce County to the south. You can see King County is the only county that actually lost wealth, that had negative growth, and that's because of Seattle. It's lost majority of its wealth just to the surrounding cities, not necessarily people that are going out of state, just people that are moving outside of Seattle into a different suburb. And then you can see Maricopa County here in Arizona is number 5 on the list. And then the counties north and south here, Snohomish County to the north, like I mentioned, and Pierce County to the south, they are gaining wealth, they're growing, and majority are coming from King County, right? People are moving out of King County, moving into the counties to the north and the south, as well as California. There's a lot of people moving to this area from California. So this is further evidence to show us that there's a lot of people that love living here, really. You can see the people that are actually leaving Seattle, leaving King County, they're not going elsewhere for the most part, according to this IRS tax tracker. A lot of them, most of them, are just going to the neighboring suburb, the neighboring county. One of the suburbs maybe 10, 20, 30 miles away, instead of being right in downtown Seattle. So I want us to be careful when labeling Seattle as a dying city and somewhere you just don't want to live. Does Seattle have its fair share of issues? Absolutely. Has Seattle government done a good job at keeping the streets clean and keeping a healthy environment in specifically Seattle proper? No, they have not, especially over the last 10, 15 years. It's only gotten worse. I'm hopeful especially with new mayor, Bruce Harrell I mentioned. He's got a plan in place for affordable housing. There's gonna be a lot more that needs to be done than just that. I'm hopeful that they will start to come up with solutions and actually improve this issue instead of it continuing to get worse. So if you live in the Seattle area or you've visited over here, feel free to comment down below. Give me your impression of Seattle and then the metropolitan area, comparing the two, and if you would live here, if you do live here, how you like the area that you live in. I think that would be helpful for people to see those comments down below. As always, as I say on all my other videos, I'm an active real estate agent in this area, so if you're moving over to Seattle or one of the surrounding suburbs, feel free to reach out to me. Would be more than happy to help you with that process. Thanks for watching this one.